Is President Donald J. Trump's Middle East peace plan a setup to get us to the Antichrist? The reason I ask is not because I believe that's true. I don't. I ask because it seems like every single time that an American president or European leader puts a Middle East peace plan on the table, social media erupts with people saying, we're in Daniel 9. We're heading into the deception of Israel. This is going to be a fake peace. It's a false peace. It's just a setup by Satan. Okay? Now, is that what's really happening here? It's an important question because, yeah, some people on social media and elsewhere, they're just cranks. They're just throwing fuel on a fire. Okay? Some of them are crazy. Let's be honest. But some people are some people who are Christians or not Christians but are interested in the Bible are genuinely curious about. They worry that Israel will get deceived because so many peace plans have been horrible. Okay, so that's true. Many peace plans are horrible. I don't believe President Trump's plan is horrible. I think it's actually pretty good. I'm going to tell you why in a moment. But let's stay with this larger topic. There are many Christians who, because they've been taught from Daniel chapter 9 that the Antichrist will emerge, the prince of the people who are to come, and that person's going to deceive Israel in the last days of history, and Israel's going to fall for it, and that's going to set up for Israel to be invaded, as the prophet Daniel talks about, by the Antichrist and his forces in the last days in the very last days of history. That Israel has to be on guard against every peace plan, and that just to be concerned about that is not nutty and it's not crazy. If you believe in Bible prophecy or if you take it seriously at all, then that's an important question that people ought to be able to answer, and I want to answer it for you. I want to start by saying that I want to remind you that Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." Okay, Matthew chapter 5, right? And King David, right, the greatest king of Israel aside from Jesus, commands us in Psalm 122 to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Okay? And the psalmist tells us that, another psalmist tells us, seek peace and pursue it. Okay? And then the Apostle Paul says, be at peace with all men to the extent it depends upon you. In other words, if you can make peace with someone, do it. It doesn't mean abandon your principles or surrender if you're in danger, but if you can make peace with your neighbor or your enemy, do that, pursue that, if it depends on you. If your enemy won't accept any deal, any ceasefire, any peace deal, then what else are you supposed to do? If your neighbor is so hostile, so angry with you, that they won't do anything that you're trying to do to diffuse the situation using godly wisdom, but you're just getting met with hostility, okay, then that doesn't depend on you. You're doing everything you can, but it's not working. Okay? So in those times and in so many others, the Bible commands us, as people who know the Bible and know the God of the Bible, who wrote the Bible, to pursue peace. Okay, that's important. Now, if God tells us to do it, and he does, then we need to be careful not to be so cynical that we immediately say that every opportunity to actually have peace, well, that's from the devil. That's from Satan. That's a setup for the Antichrist, right? If a person has that knee-jerk reaction, that's out of balance. Okay. Now any peace deal, especially in the Middle East, I would encourage you to be skeptical, but not cynical. There's a difference. Cynical means, it's ridiculous, it could never happen. Skeptical is, I want to see the details. Trust but verify, as President Reagan used to say in trying to make a peace deal to establish peace with the Soviet Union, which he called the evil empire, right? But Reagan still pursued peace. Why? Because he was an evangelical Christian who knew his Bible and knew that the Bible commands that. And he wanted to get the world off the road to Armageddon, off the road to World War III, if he could if it depended upon him. Now, he was tough. Reagan was tough with the Soviets, right? He put the onus on the Soviet leader. He said, you say you want peace? Come here. Come to the Brandenburg Gate and tear down this wall, right? He built up the American military, right? He built up the American nuclear arsenal, the ICBM force, the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Force, to be state of the art. And then he told American researchers, go figure out how to shoot down a missile with a missile. I want a missile defense system. And of course, the Democrats, liberals generally, dismissed it, ridiculed Reagan as pursuing Star Wars, right? Because the movie Star Wars that George Lucas had done was so super popular at the end of the 70s and in the whole series into the 80s. The idea of shooting down, the enemy, fighter jets or Death Star or whatever it was at the time, and depending on the movie, that couldn't be done. And that seemed ridiculous. You can't shoot down a missile with a missile. And you certainly can't use lasers to shoot down ballistic missiles. So we don't need a missile defense system. Just surrender. just give up and give the Soviets what they want, and everything will be quiet. Reagan didn't believe that. He believed, number one, that the Soviets were evil, and he believed in peace through strength. Right? That America and NATO had to be stronger, clearly, demonstrably stronger. The military, the economy, it all had to be stronger. The political systems of these countries had to be stronger than the Soviets. Peace through strength. That if the Soviets think you are stronger than them, then they won't move, they won't act, they won't attack. And he believed in missile defenses. Now, the reason I say all that, bring it back to our main topic, is because Reagan pursued military strength and even challenged the Soviets in Grenada and Afghanistan, right? But Reagan still pursued peace. Now, he did that because it goes the right thing to do, but he did it as a believer, a Bible believer, as a Bible-believing Christian. He believed to be strong, to not cower and give in to evil, but also pursue peace. Now, that's what President Trump is doing. I believe that's what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are doing. They are fighting. Trump was not afraid to use B-2 bombers and attack and destroy and neutralize Iran's most hardened, most deep, embedded into mountains nuclear weapons facilities. He sent American B-2 bombers into action. They dropped 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs, and they destroyed, neutralized the Iran nuclear threat. After Prime Minister Netanyahu ordered a massive military attack, air attack, fighter jets, missiles, so forth, against Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile threat. But they are pursuing peace. Remember what Trump did for 60 days before he ordered U.S. bombers to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities. He gave the Iranian leadership 60 days to make peace, to come to the table, negotiate. Trump pursued peace. But ultimately, the 60 days were up, and the Iranians weren't taking it seriously. So Trump did what he said he was going to do. He attacked. When Lynn and I founded the Joshua Fund in 2006, the mission was clear: to educate and mobilize Christians to bless Israel and her neighbors in the name of Jesus. And that mission is more urgent than ever. Would you join us at this critical hour and become an Epicenter Ally? With your generous monthly tax-deductible donation of $50, $100 or more, you can help us invest in churches and ministries that are preaching the gospel, teaching the word, shepherding the flock, making disciples, caring for the poor and needy, comforting widows and orphans, and strengthening the church to fulfill the Great Commission in Israel and the Arab Muslim world. You'll also be helping the Joshua Fund educate the church in the United States and around the world about God's love and prophetic plan for Israel and her neighbors. Go to joshuafund.com/TBN, make a donation, and become an Epicenter Ally today. Netanyahu has offered peace peace offer over and over. He's accepted be clear about this, Prime Minister Netanyahu has accepted every peace plan that Trump has put on the table, every ceasefire, that would get some hostages out and quiet things down for a little while. Those weren't final peace plans, but Trump and his team, Steve Witkoff and Marco Rubio and these guys, were putting together plans. And Netanyahu and the Israelis said yes to every single one of them. But Hamas kept saying no. Now we're at a point where Trump's like, I'm not doing any more ceasefires. This is it. This is the last plan. And he's got buy-in from every single sane, moderate Arab and Muslim leader. He also has buy-in from Qatar, which I think is playing a double game. He's got buy-in from Turkish President Recep Erdogan, which I think is a horrible leader and not a friend of the United States. I disagree with President Trump on that. I don't think that Qatar and Turkey are true friends of the United States. But they have leverage in this moment, and Trump is treating them like friends. He's trying, but he's got all of them agreeing with this plan. And what does the plan say? I'm going to tell you about that in a moment. But I first want to say, I do not dismiss this plan as some sort of setup for the Antichrist. Now, I don't know if it's going to work. Okay, I want to be clear about that. You know, Hamas might just say yes, but not really follow through. Or they may, and that's sort of what they've done in the first few days since Trump made his ultimatum. Right? He gave them 72 hours. Accept this deal, or at least get started in accepting it, and we can talk through some of the other details in 72 hours, or all hell's going to break loose. And that seemed to rattle Hamas, and so they came to the table. They said yes, but, effectively. And now there's discussions as I record this. Now, in the end, we're going to find out very, very soon if Hamas is serious, if they feel the pressure from Turkey, from Qatar, from the Saudis, from the Emiratis, from the Jordanians, from the Egyptians. The entire Arab Muslim world is against them now. The Arab League, over the summer, you may have missed this, but the Arab League actually met and decided to denounce Hamas and tell them to give up. That's impressive. That's powerful. That had not happened earlier, but it has happened. And Trump is leveraging this. He and his team are working these things to get to the point where the entire region, including Europe, which has been pretty hostile to Israel, I have to say, putting arms embargoes on Israel, saying that Israel's engaged in genocide, that they're starving Palestinians, and all these things, and declaring unilateral support for Palestinian state, which is not a helpful discussion at the moment. But even still, Trump has got his deal, a 20-point agreement, and everybody's on board, everybody that matters, including the Arab Muslim world, some of whom have been standing with Hamas effectively. But they're all on board, including Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Now you could say, no, that's just because the world is being deceived by Satan. Maybe. I don't think so. I think actually that this is the Israeli plan. I think the Israelis have been developing a day after plan. And I think, and we're going to get back to the prophetic implications in just a moment, but I think, everybody kept telling Netanyahu, where's your day after plan? Where's your day after plan? Where's your day after plan? I mentioned this on this week's episode of the Rosenberg Report. Everybody keeps saying that. But if Netanyahu had put an actual detailed plan on the table, do you think anybody would have accepted it? The Arab Muslim world wouldn't have. Europe wouldn't have. Certainly the Palestinian Authority wouldn't have. And Hamas wouldn't have either. That plan, no matter how good it was, that if Netanyahu wrote it, it would have been dead on arrival. Okay? So what did Bibi do? He was very crafty. He kept pushing militarily. We're just going to keep fighting Hamas. We're going to keep fighting Hamas. Even if the world tells us we're horrible and says, give up, lay down your arms, stop, it's enough. He provided lots of food. He allowed tons and tons and tons, literally tons, of humanitarian relief, food, medical supplies, water, all kinds of supplies to come into the Palestinians. Okay? But he kept fighting, he kept fighting. He kept the Israeli military fighting deeper and deeper into Gaza, particularly into Gaza City. But then, behind the scenes, Netanyahu and his team were doing what? They were negotiating, they were talking with Trump and his team, Steve Witkoff and Marco Rubio, and Jared Kushner got involved. Jared Kushner, who had negotiated the Abraham Accords 5 years ago. And basically, what this 20-point plan is the Bibi plan. Now, I'm not saying Bibi wrote it. I'm saying Bibi and his team had involvement, particularly Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer. The point being, the Trump team really did draft it. It really is their plan. But Netanyahu and Dermer were working behind the scenes to make sure the plan was truly a plan that would accomplish Israel's actual military goals. Defeat Hamas, demilitarize Gaza, make sure that no government takes over Gaza that has any connection to Hamas or the Palestinian Authority, unless the Palestinian Authority somehow makes radical reforms, which we haven't seen yet, but maybe they will someday. But until then, they can't be involved. The PA can't be involved. Hamas can't be involved. Israel needs to oversee the security of the area, be fully responsible for the foreseeable future until an international security force is stood up and begins to take over neighborhood by neighborhood, and then Israel can ease back. Okay? That is what the plan does. That's why it's so good. That's why it's got buy-in, because the entire Arab Muslim world and Europe, they're sick of Hamas. They've had it. Because Trump has shown them, and Netanyahu has shown, that every time a ceasefire is put on the table, Bibi Netanyahu says yes, and Hamas says no. So everybody has seen it. It's not Bibi that's stopping peace. It's Hamas. And now that that's clear, Trump said, good, no more partial deals. We're doing a full deal. This is the 20-point plan that will lead, I believe, Trump already knows this because Jared Kushner's involved in it. It's going to lead to, if this is implemented, it's going to lead to the Saudis making peace in the not too distant future with Israel. Indonesia, the largest Muslim country on the planet, I believe is going to make peace with Israel. The Indonesian president just went to the UN and said very warm things about Israel, very unexpectedly. And I believe other countries are getting ready to make peace. But they know Hamas is the obstacle. And so everybody's now literally ganging up on Hamas. Now, this brings us back to the prophetic point. Is Israel just being duped? Is Trump being duped by Hamas or by Qatar? Look, we'll see in the days ahead whether Hamas accepts this deal. There's two issues here. The first is the deal good or is it satanic? The deal's good. The second issue is whether Hamas will accept it, really, and really give up all the hostages and really lay down their arms and really go into exile. We'll see. I'm not convinced, but let's see. I don't want to be a cynic. I'm a little bit of a skeptic, but I want to be cautiously optimistic. But here's the point. Bible prophecy tells us that there will be peace, or at least calm and security for Israel in the last days of history before two major events happen in prophetic last days history. One is the war of Gog and Magog, where Russia, Iran, Turkey, Libya, Sudan, and other countries create an alliance and come and attack and try to invade Israel in the last days of history. That's Ezekiel 38 and 39. And then after that, after God supernaturally destroys that coalition, then some period of time it goes by and Israel's quiet again, secure again. Before the war of Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38 says Israel's living securely in the land. Things are quiet. Israelis are feeling relaxed. And then this Russian, Iranian, Turkish alliance comes. But God supernaturally destroys that alliance, Ezekiel 39. And then there's a period of calm and quiet again. And then the Antichrist comes and takes over, right? Invades the beautiful land and so forth. And we head into the tribulation and Armageddon and the end of days, the full end of the end, before Jesus comes back. That's the timeline prophetically. Here's the key. We'll close on this. And I want you to watch. As horrible as it's been since October 7th 2 years ago to October 7th now and going forward, as horrible as it's been, the Bible indicates that Israel is heading to a time where it is strong and it is peaceful and it is prosperous and Israelis feel secure, and then another horrible event happens. So as bad as this is, I believe Israel's going to emerge soon. It might not be this week, it might not be next week, and it might not be this month or this year, but in the next period of time, I think this is going to work. Whether it's the plan itself or Hamas's rejection of the plan, and Israel having to go in and militarily vanquish and obliterate Hamas once and for all, militarily, either way, we're heading to a point soon. Soon. mark my words, soon, where Israel is the dominant superpower in the region. Everybody has seen how powerful, strong, and resolved Israel is. And then countries start making peace with Israel. I think the Palestinians of Gaza will essentially surrender. And I hope, let's pray, that things get calm and that a new government that is calm and peaceful and not anti-Israel, but pro-Israel and will, or at least willing to work in peace and security. I think that's possible. I think that's coming. I think Palestinians in Gaza are sick. They are sick. They are furious at what Hamas has done to them. And they're done. They're done with Hamas. That's what I believe. We'll see. We'll see. But that's what the prophecies say is coming, where Israel's living secure on every border. They're almost there now. So let's keep praying. Let's keep watching. But no, this Trump peace plan is not a prelude to the Antichrist. Let's not be cynics. Let's not throw this out. Let's keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem and the entire region. And let's watch to see how it plays out. But let's trust that the prophecies of the Bible are true. We're heading towards an amazing season of peace and prosperity for Israel. I can't wait. This is Joel Rosenberg with a YouTube exclusive for the Rosenberg Report.